Want to go ahead and begin, Melissa?
I'll give about, Megan said 4, so we'll just give a few more minutes.
I think she meant 4 o'clock their time. She just put in the chat that she wants us to begin.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and grab the link so that everyone has this in the chat as well, so that you guys can follow along and you have all the resources as we talk about them today. Christy, do you mind putting the link in the chat?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great, thank you. We'll go ahead and get started. This webinar is called Cooking with Canvas, and it kind of started last spring. Christy and I put in a proposal for Cooking with Canvas as a ACT conference session in Nashville. And then actually a few months after we put our proposal in, we were asked to write an article on it. So we did that for ACTE. And then after we presented at the conference, we were then asked to present in this webinar. So we are very excited to be here.
Yes.
You will see that in the chat where the link is, that there are a lot of resources here that we provide today. So we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Melissa Elgood, and my position now is I'm an assistant principal at Kofa High School. Christy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Christy Nicholson, and I'm the Culinary Arts teacher at Kofa High School.
So just a little background, and we'll get a little bit more into the story later in the presentation, but I was our Director of Educational Technologies for 2 years. I was also a CTE technology coach, and in January, I became an assistant principal at one of the schools. So it's been a very recent change, so I'm kind of working in my old job a little bit still here. I think it's really important that we talk about Yuma Union High School District. We are down in Yuma, Arizona. And if you're unfamiliar with Yuma, that is in the southwest corner of Arizona. We are, I would say, about 10 miles from Mexico, and we are about somewhere between 2 to 3 miles from California, depending on where you are. North end of town is right on the border there. So that's kind of where we're placed demographically, and that is really important to understand as you go through this presentation and you understand our students. Our district is just high school. We are 5 comprehensive high schools plus an additional 6 smaller school with a smaller school feel. We have about 11,200 students enrolled in the district. Schools are all Title I, and every single school is 100% free and reduced lunch. And what that really means is that the number of free and reduced lunches is so high that it's more economic and cost effective to just give every student a free lunch than to charge the few. We are 88% minority district. We are a very heavily Hispanic school at Kofa High School, as well as the district is a very heavy Hispanic community. But we don't believe those things define us. We believe that a 93.6% graduation rate, we are very proud of that. We have a 62.4% college going rate, and we have 88 CTE approved sections of CTE courses throughout our district. I'm just going to check the chat real quick.
Most of them just say thank you and great graduation rate.
Excellent. So, and please, if you have questions, Christy and I are trying to naturally allow for questions throughout the presentation, so you don't have to wait necessarily until the end. We like that kind of interaction.
Yes, please.
So this presentation, we've kind of tweaked it just a little bit because we thought you guys would be interested in what the current situation is, right? With the pandemic, we feel like things have changed so frequently. So it's important for us for you guys to understand what the current situation looks like in Yuma, Arizona. So right now, students can pick to attend in person or online 5 days a week. Teachers teach to both in-person students and online students simultaneously. All students have access to Canvas 24/7, and that is our learning management system. And Christy is averaging about 14 to 16 students in person and 2 to 4 students attend online. Christy, do you want to just talk a little bit about what your classroom looks like right now?
Well, right now, well, it's actually great. The kids are actually in the lab and being able to do hands-on, and they're very excited about it because we spent, a lot of the year going over the fundamentals and the basics and the building blocks of getting to the point of being in the lab. In a normal year, we would do that simultaneously, but unfortunately, because of distance learning, we had to do a lot of front loading, and now they're getting a lot of hands-on practice, and it's great. The kids are excited about it, and I mean, you just observed my class the other day, Melissa. Every kid is engaged. They're excited to be in class.
And then Christy will have a computer up and a Google Meet.
Yes.
She has a Google Meet going, and she has a pretty big monitor that she can allow her students to kind of see what is going on in the classroom. And kind of, Christy, am I correct? It points towards one of your kind of lab stations so they can see that as well.
Yeah, so it's actually facing two of the stations so they can see both stations and kind of see a different, you're not just getting that one team feel, but two team feel. And then in my more advanced level, it's more one-on-one. So you would be you pair them with an online student, and then they can kind of talk about the processes that they're doing that day.
Thank you. So then just a little bit more, we thought you guys might want to see the actual schedule, so students attend in person or on camera, like we said, Monday through Friday, 7:45 to 12:45. And then our teacher contract is 7:30 to 3 o'clock. Students have a grab and go lunch at 12:45 and they take the bus home. So then that leaves 12:45 to 3 o'clock for teachers to use that time to collaborate, grade, tutor students, etc. And this is important because as we move through the presentation, we will kind of talk about the PLCs and how this has changed some because of this extra time we now have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any questions on the schedule or how we're doing things as far as on camera versus in person? We can give about a minute just to make sure there aren't any questions on this. I know that sometimes maybe if you're from across the country, you want to see what other people are doing, or maybe you have an additional question you'd like to add.
Okay. Have your classes always been 5 hours a day, or is that just since COVID hit?
That's a great question. That has been just since COVID hit. So I want to say that we've changed our schedule a few times, and it was probably in November that we went to a 7:45 to 12:45. And one thing we learned is we couldn't keep changing the schedule. So we kept the schedule the same. This schedule also allowed for students not to congregate in the lunchroom, which was a very, very big concern. So this allowed for that grab and go lunch. It still got students here for 5 hours a day. And then there's some additional time for teachers to collaborate and do some of those other things, especially right now with, having maybe a few extra students that need extra support. There's all sorts of other things that go on in a pandemic. Christy, looks like we have a few more questions.
Yeah, so John was telling us a little bit about his culinary programs that he has. They have culinary 1, 2, and 3 in commercial baking. Cindy says, how large is your student population? I am not able to see all of the chats / questions.
Okay, so our school, specifically COFA, is about 2,400 kids. It is a large high school. And Classroom, Christy pretty much has her classes are up to 32, Christy, is that correct?
Yes. They
32.
maxed out our CT programs at 32 for safety purposes.
So for 32 is the biggest, and she does have that many, but we do have some students that are kind of, we can't seem to figure out where they are. They're doing enough to, you know, get attendance and that sort of thing, but they are still struggling.
Yes.
Christy, are there other things in the chat?
John wrote, our student population is 1,200 students. No questions.
Okay, great.
Okay. So let's talk about what is Cooking with Canvas. We gave you kind of a snapshot of where we are, what the feel is in Yuma, but what is Cooking with Canvas? And so Cooking with Canvas for us was like a cookbook. Everything you need to make a recipe or an entree. For us, it was everything you need to teach this course or any CTE course in a year. Everything from the content, lessons, labs, assessments, everything you need. And when we first were coming up with this, a lot of it was thinking about new teachers. New teachers in the CTE realm usually, for most part, come from industry. And although they're great at their trade, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're educators. So how can we set them up for success and get them to stay where they have everything they need? How do we chunk this properly? How do we scaffold this properly? How do you write an objective? How do we do all these things to help them be successful? And so we compile the whole year together and on Canvas, which is our LMS, and then be able to give it to a new teacher and say, here you go. Here's everything you need, but you still have the power to change it based on your experience or your personality, or maybe you want to make it better or different. That's okay. But then they're not trying to navigate the waters through the mud, you know, and they're able to take that course and be successful and be able to teach a whole course without actually ever being a teacher and giving them that teacher knowledge.
Yeah, so, and there is a link down here with the Cooking with Canvas course. It's in Commons of Canvas, and so it can give you an idea of what we're looking at. It also has a plethora of resources, which I always love when I come to a professional development, getting some free resources. So that is linked in there for you to see as well. Any questions, or Christy, is there anything else we want to add?
Well, I don't want to give away some of our next stuff, so I'm not with this. Okay.
And thank you for the shout out on the chat that it looks wonderful. Yeah, Christy and I really, this has been like a year-long project, and so we really tried to come up with resources that were useful. There's some things that maybe you can take back to your school to look at, that sort of thing. So there are 5 key ingredients, we believe, to Cooking with Canvas, kind of like a recipe. And we found that a strong professional learning community is definitely key. And please keep in mind, our example for this is using a culinary class, but any of these things could be applied to really any subject area, CTE or non-CTE. And I think you'll find how we've been able to successfully use a Canvas LMS to help elevate CTE programs. The next ingredient is technology support. We also found that using some things, instructional templates, have been super helpful for us, and we'll get into a little bit more detail later on that. Effective rubrics, and when we talk about rubrics, we are talking about effective rubrics on Canvas courses. So that's a kind of a newer idea that our district came up with about 1.5 years ago at this point, and that's been very helpful. And then embedded in professional development, we also believe is critical to being successful.
Okay, so key ingredient number 1, professional learning communities, which we all refer to as our PLCs. Our PLCs is all of the culinary teachers in our district. We have a really great PLC as a culinary program. We are great communication. We meet on a regular basis. It's changed a little bit with COVID. We now meet virtually every Tuesday at 1:30. But before, we would carve out time to go to each other's campuses, see each other's kitchens, or sometimes we'd go out to dinner together. We also have a group chat with each other. And so we're constantly in communication and able to make those in real time moment changes or updates, or, you know, especially with the change of PLCs with COVID, you know, I had to change everything our Canvas looked like. And so we're like, okay, well, maybe you work on this and you work on that and you work on this. And then we brought it all back together to then be able to accommodate all those changes without putting all that work on one person. But in a normal year, our PLC comes together to really just tighten up everything as far as curriculum goes with our Canvas page, what it looks like, the state standards. If there's any changes within that, we are able to do that. Also, our district is really great about sending one of us, whether it's to a state collaboration for framework or blueprints or scope and sequence or standard writing or skill assessment writing. And then we're able to, as a PLC, share all of that with each other so that we know what's going on in real time. And we're not, you know, it's not just a guesswork. It's not something that comes down from the Department of Education and then we're like trying to figure it out. One of us was actively involved in that, and then we're able to bring it back to each other in our PLC, which is just making us stronger. And, you know, part of our PLC is we're really good about not competing. It's not about whose program is better, but it's about making all of the programs better and doing it together in unison and having similar content taught at similar times. And so it doesn't matter if you transfer from one high school to another in our district, we're going to be 2 to 3 lessons within the last high school. And so they already know our processes, our procedures, what we expect in the lab, what we're working on. And so if you leave from one school and we're talking about knife safety, you come to the next school, we're still talking about knife safety. And so it's really bringing us together and really pushing us up as far as what is expected and making our programs better together.
And then Christy, just a little bit about how PLCs have changed because of COVID.
Yeah, so now we're meeting virtually instead of in person, instead of meeting in each other's campuses. The other thing we're doing, like I said, is we're piecing it together. So when we were doing 100% distance learning, I mean, our Canvas wasn't built for that. Our Canvas was built for 50% of lab time. And so we really had to get creative and do different things. And so each one of us would take a piece of that and then kind of come back together and share so that we didn't have to create it all at once. And even now we're still, you know, we all go shopping together for school. We do all of those things. And because now that the restrictions are lifted a little bit, we are able to start seeing each other. But before it was really staying in communication via text, or we'd have Google Meets every Tuesday at 1:30.
And now it's nice because of the schedule that they do have a little extra time for PLC and collaboration.
Absolutely. I love that we have that. And I hope even when we go back to a normal year, that we still get that solid time or commit to dedicating it to that, because it's really just helped us make the program better.
So John says that at Pemberton High School, their technical skills and knowledge assessment, we use the NOCTI assessment program, National Occupations and Technical Institution for Culinary Arts. For us, Christy, do you want to talk about the assessment a little bit that you use?
Okay, so we have a state requirement as a TSA that we are required to have all of our year 2 students take. We also, every CTE program in our district is required to have some sort of industry certification that is offered. For my program, we do offer 2 industry certifications. They are required to get OSHA 10 certified, and then they are also ServSafe certified. So the first year they get OSHA 10, the second year they get ServSafe certified.
And thank you, John. And Cindy just said communication and collaboration is key, and that is definitely the case with this project, and really with any sort of well-functioning PLC. That is definitely a true part of it. Is there any other questions or comments about professional learning communities? John also says every CTE program at Pemberton also has a state requirement assessment. The culinary students are also ServSafe certified. Yes, and our students have that opportunity as well, John. And at the end, we will show some of our data and how our data has changed since implementing this program. Anything else, or we can move on to the next key ingredient. The next key ingredient is technology support. And so one thing that we did in the CTE world of Yuma Union High School District is for 2 years, we had a technology coach, and they were specifically sold, their job was to work on implementing technology in the CTE classroom. And I did have that position for the first year of it, and then I moved on to be the director for the district. But so I would do a lot of one-on-one coaching with teachers. I would also go in and watch a teacher and then give some guidance on how they could help them. Keep in mind that this happened before COVID, and so not every teacher was gung-ho excited to use Canvas. And so there was a big push to get teachers on board with using Canvas. Keep in mind, we did have Canvas since 2014. So we've had it for some time. But there was always kind of an extra push to try to get teachers on board to use it. Now, one of the silver linings of a pandemic is that really everyone has had to be comfortable with the learning management system, whether it's Canvas, Google Classroom, or whatever your district uses. We also implemented Saturday technology trainings, and those were really popular. They were generally towards the beginning of the school year. Teachers came in for the day. It was very relaxed, but it gave them opportunity to learn some skills and then practice those skills and work with their PLC members. They did get paid for their time additionally for that. So then I thought you guys would probably want to know about the technology supports since COVID-19 hit Yuma Union High School District. Like I said, we had we've had Canvas since about 2014. So some of us were very comfortable with it, loved it, used it all the time. That wasn't the case for all teachers though. So what we did is we really focused on our instructional coaches and our instructional leaders becoming Canvas experts, because we really were going to need that much support in place. And those were our leaders. And so we felt it was critical that those leaders had the skills to be able to do that. So we set up some kind of triage so that if they had questions, they could contact myself to be able to get those questions answered. But we really did kind of make it an expectation. Okay, you're an instructional leader. Part of this is going to be you understanding how to use our learning management system. And that has really worked well. And that model, I believe, is the best model to go with, because quite frankly, I want an instructional coach to know if the technology is going to help with the problem or not. And I want that technology, that coach to be able to help implement that technology instead of sending that teacher to yet another person to have to try to help them figure out the technology. Are there questions on technology supports that we have? I will give about a 15 to 20 seconds to see if there's any questions on that. Doesn't seem like there are. So we will move on to the next key ingredient.
So the next key ingredient is instructional templates. And I'm going to piggyback off of what Melissa said for just a minute with this first template, the calendar template. When Melissa was first putting this calendar template together, it was for a project she was doing for her master's degree. And it's kind of evolved since then, especially with Canvas. But, you know, way before COVID, there was some reluctancy about using Canvas or an LMS system, especially with CTE programs. And both before she was the technical or technology support person, she also taught, and she taught CTE. And so she's like, I know that it can be used in every CTE course. And so, we teamed up together when she was putting this calendar template together, and I was going to guinea pig it for her. And she really wanted to just show it doesn't matter what you teach in CTE, you can use a learning management system to do it. And you can be pretty much a paperless classroom to do it as well. And it was fun in the beginning. It was very nice because it was a consolidated place to have everything I needed. And it didn't matter if it was links for the kids or, stuff that was embedded in videos and demonstrations, or even recordings of what myself doing it. It was all there in one spot. It was in a calendar. So they knew, okay, well, if I wasn't at school on Friday, I could go back and see what I missed. And that was even before COVID. So I really felt like, we were ready when the pandemic did come, because of all these things that we already had in place. And like I said, it's evolved, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but it was a great way to also share and send things to our PLC members without it being complicated. And so the calendar, it's still my favorite. I still use it because it is my favorite, and it's adapted a little bit, but because of COVID, but it's been really great to be able to see it doesn't matter what you teach in CTE, you can use Canvas for that.
And Christy, can I add a little to that? Sorry, is that I also had a sports medicine teacher implement the calendar template quite a few years ago at this point to use it. And she had the same kind of results as Christy on how helpful it was and how consolidated it was. And so I did try a few different areas out to test it before I really kind of sprung with it. And eventually I presented at the Canvas Con for Arizona. And so all the templates are here linked for you guys as well. Christy, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's great. And absolutely. It's, that was a great point. When COVID first hit during second semester of last year is when we implemented the standard-based template. And this one was really great for a lot of students, especially, getting them ready and prepared for college, where somebody's not walking you through each lesson. I will say it doesn't necessarily work for every student, but because some need that, check this box, that box, go do this next. But it was it was great because you could have the whole unit on Canvas and then have it broken down each piece, and they can work through it at their own pace, which is very similar to what a lot of college courses do now. And so that one was fantastic. And then as we evolved some more and we started to come back to school, but only part-time, for us, it was A through L Monday and Tuesday, M through Z Thursday and Friday, with all of our distance learners on Wednesday. And this hybrid template really helped all three of those students, all three groups of those students. And some teachers did it where they just kept on moving and it didn't matter. And you knew, so if you were home on Monday and Tuesday and you came to school Thursday and Friday, the work was that you did at home on Monday and Tuesday was what the kids in class were doing. Or you could switch it around and have, if you were like myself, a CT program with a lab, the lab on Monday and Tuesday was the same as Thursday and Friday, and then they had online work to do on the opposite days. And so it was very flexible and it worked for all three groups, and it didn't matter what your teaching style was, it was consistent with that. And so it was great. The next thing that we implemented this year, actually we started it last year, is giving the students choice to show mastery. And, it doesn't mean that, for some, we just have different learners. And when we don't have them in front of us, and even sometimes when we have them in front of us, they need options on how to learn. For us, it doesn't matter necessarily how you got there, as long as you got there. And so offering choice of assignment and giving them choices on how they wanted to complete that standard or show mastery in that standard was great. And I know, and multiple people have told me there are certain things that you can only do one way, and we understand that, but maybe there's different ways that I can show you how I learned it or how I got to it. And so offering choice of assignment, I will tell you, even as a culinary teacher with the kids all at home, I had to do this very creatively. How are they going to show me something when, it's at home? And so, one of the things that I did was, I gave them a cook at home assignment and they could cook whatever they wanted. At this point, I just want you to practice. It's not about the specific unit I'm in because especially like Melissa had mentioned earlier, we're a Title I school. I can't have those expectations, but just making anything and then being able to describe to me what process you used or what was it that and as weeks got on, their descriptions got better and better because they started learning more and more of that base knowledge. And they would just show me with pictures and then descriptions and reflection. And so offering the choice of assignment has really improved, I think, the students' learning, and they get to, in their minds, they're picking the easy one. But overall, everyone is learning or mastering that same standard.
Thank you, Christy. That's exactly right. There was a question from Cindy. Do you need Canvas to view the resources you'll have posted? Cindy, yes and no. There are some resources posted that you do not need the resource, you do not need Canvas for, but these templates particularly, they are specific to Canvas. I was thinking maybe at the end, if I have time, I can go in and just show you what the calendar template looks like so that those who don't have a Canvas can still kind of get a feel of what we're talking about. John also said, choice of assignment is fantastic. Students will perform best when they're comfortable. Yeah, John, one thing we really emphasized when we were going through school closure is that we needed some sort of choice in assignment so that students could have different ways to show mastery. What do I care if I'm a world history teacher, if I write a few sentences understanding the concept, or I share a video of me explaining it to my dog. At the end of the day, it's still showing the mastery of the particular standard based on the content. So Cindy, yeah, so Google Classroom, you could maybe look at this and see. I haven't really found quite a way to do this in Google Classroom, but maybe you could use a Google Doc to help you out. So I'll try to make sure we have time to show you at the end. All right. Our next key ingredient is what we call an effective rubric. And so in September of 2019, myself and the person who took over the CTE coaching job, CTE technology coach job after me, Kathy Hoover, who is now also an assistant principal, we worked together to create a rubric that basically helped guide leadership on what a Canvas course should have. What components should it have? How can we hold teachers accountable for using Canvas? How can we hold our instructional leaders accountable for using Canvas and not just make it like something you should be doing, but really have evidence and really have data to back up and kind of have some sort of criteria. So we created this rubric. And so basically it goes from a 0 to a 3. A 0 is not using, and a 3 is an expert user is what we called it. And in the next slide, when I talk about embedded professional development, you'll see how we took this rubric one step further. But the expert user, the ideal was a student who was absent would have enough access to meet the objective at home. So this, mind you, came out before COVID-19. And so we wanted to make sure that if a student missed the day, based on your Canvas course, could they get through the objective? That was what a 3 would look like. And so some of the things we looked for were a paperless classroom, which could include photo, video submissions. And Christy talked a little bit about students cooking at home. She used a lot of photo evidence for a lot of her assignments, especially in the during school closure. Personalization of a course, does this course really feel like the teacher, or is it just some generic course that they copied over? Student-friendly navigation. I cannot stress enough, we need to be looking at a Canvas course from the eye of a student who has never set foot in the class. Can they understand the course? Is the teacher mainly using Google products? We were for a while having an issue of teachers still wanting to use things like Word and PowerPoint. And the problem is we are a one-to-one school district, but we're a one-to-one school district with Chromebooks. And so in order for students to have full access, we need teachers on board using Google products. Was there some choice in assignment? Was there multiple ways for students to learn material? Here's a really important one. Was the assignment authentic? Was it rigorous? Was it just a worksheet? Or was it really asking the student to master the standard? And then the assignment is linked in the homepage. That was a big deal. It's kind of specific to our district. And then this one had particulars on the hybrid model, which thank goodness we are not back to that. I think we decided that was not good. We weren't going to go back to a hybrid model. That was really hard on a lot of people. Christy, I think I see something in the chat. Do you want to?
Yeah, John was just talking about how he also had his kids doing cook at home, and they sent kits home for their students, which I know several of our CTE programs like construction and engineering have done similar things. And he also said that more than half of their students are in class daily and the other ones are still online. But they just announced that all students will return to full-time come the fall. So that's good.
Oh, you got that announcement, huh, John? That's huge.
Cindy wrote, curious how your students who are virtual prepare and make the specific recipe. Do you have to worry about safety? You know, for us, because we're Title I, we weren't giving them specific recipes that they would have to go and buy the ingredients. A lot of families just aren't able to do that. And the pandemic kind of actually made it worse for us, not better. And so we know that you can't eat out 3 meals a day. So we know you're making something. So just show us what you made and tell us, you know, maybe whatever we're working on, we're pulling from that. So tell us how this process, you know, what was the cooking process, even if it was microwaved, right? That's a cooking process. You know, what internal temperature were you looking for, even if you were microwaving it? And so they were able to break down what they were making and what processes they were using within that without a specific recipe. And so it gave them choice. You know, some people, you could spot students real quick that love baking because every week it was something else being baked, and you had students who loved to grill because everything they turned in was grill. And so you really got to know their personality that way as well.
The other thing to just keep in mind is that we talked about the 88% minority. And so some of the ingredients that we would maybe find very typical in our household might not be the same in a Hispanic household or in a household of a different culture. So that was a really important piece that's especially important to keep in mind, that, you know, something that's very standard in your house, that might not be the case in a house of a different culture.
Yeah. Cindy wrote, we were concerned with liability on the school's part. You know, I put very much so disclaimers out there. I also had a makeup. So if you were literally not able to cook at home, there was a makeup option for that. So again, different choice and assignment. But also students who are really uncomfortable in the kitchen, you know, they were allowed to help mom prep dinner. And so they just had to show that they were part of the process in some way. And that helped with that as well. And it really connected it better for them by providing all those options and those choices.
All right. Our last and fifth ingredient is embedded professional development. So a little bit about YUHSD is that once a year in February, we have an all district professional development day. And so we didn't know in February of 2020 that a pandemic was coming, but it was a day focused on Canvas, and we did something very unique. We made a differentiated professional development that focused on Canvas, was on Canvas, and that was by content area. So what we did is in the morning, we had our associate superintendent give a message to all teachers. And then we broke up and we sent world history to one place. We sent CTE to another place. We sent English to another place. And then we had them take a quiz, a BuzzFeed-like quiz that said, what's your Canvas spirit animal? And what this did was it was a fun way to help determine what path each person should be on. So if they were really struggling with Canvas and brand new, they would be a koala. And they had one set of tasks. If they were somewhere in the middle of the road, then they would be considered a wolf. And if they were our go-getters, our Christy Nicholsons, they would be considered a lioness. And so then from there, before that day, I got Canvas experts together from every content area. It was about two per subject. And we kind of got together and we built this course. And so the idea was that the koalas, they were having direct instruction, small group, and they were learning different specific things. Our wolves, they kind of were in a group together and they had somebody circulating and kind of asking questions, but it was a self-paced course they were working on, but they did have kind of immediate help. And then my lionesses, they were kind of on their own. They got to do their own thing, completely self-paced course. And what we did to tie into that is then once they did a little bit of Canvas, they got back with their PLC and they got to start working on those skills. Then they did a little bit more on Canvas, then they got back with their PLC and they started working on those things some more. So it's kind of like you learn a little bit about Canvas, you get some work time. You learn a little bit about Canvas, you get some work time. And I have to say this day was overwhelmingly very popular in our group, in our school district. It got people excited. It kind of fit everybody because there were different options. And to this day, we still, I think we've coined the phrase of a koala. We all know, we all have koalas, right? And so it was a very successful differentiated professional development for us. And there is a link to the course that we did for that day, so that if you want it, it's available to you.
You know, and it was really great being a teacher myself versus just sitting, you know, in an auditorium somewhere, listening to a guest speaker talk for hours on end. Don't get me wrong, those are all great, but this was really great because like Melissa said, everyone had something. And even if you were a lioness and you weren't teaching one of the sessions, you got to pick and choose what you wanted to learn about. So if you're like, ooh, studio, what's that? I have no idea. You got to explore, you know, and if you were, and one of the breakdowns too in PLCs is if you have a koala and you have a lioness, sometimes the quality of your PLC sometimes doesn't match because one is way further than the other. So by having this, and then the koalas being able to be like, wow, look what I just learned. And same with the wolves, it really brought the PLCs much closer. And it really had that collaboration, which is some of the best professional development out there. Honestly, we learn more from each other than anything else. And so it really was a great day. And I've seen some of our own teachers who were koalas who definitely have evolved to wolves just from this professional development. You know, I feel like most of us are lionesses after COVID, but from this professional development, it really stepped us up.
Yeah, and so you guys, here's just kind of an idea of what the professional development page looked like. And so you can tell it's very clear. If I was a wolf for the first session, I could pick either Canvas calendar course, that's what we were talking about earlier, or converting my stuff from Microsoft to Google. And you can go back to that rubric, because the rubric is where kind of guided these, right? So I talked about everything being a Google product. Well, some of my wolves maybe weren't doing that yet. And so that's why we gave them that. And then the next section, they got to pick two more, and then or choose between two. And then you can see that the koalas, it was strategic that these were the three basic things we felt like we needed to get through on that day in order to set people up for success. So that's kind of how we did our professional development. It went over super well, and this is before typically online learning was happening due to the pandemic. Christy, do you want to talk about, so, you know, we've talked a lot about it, but I'm a data person, and so we thought we should show some proof in what we're doing.
Right. And this, the evolution of my PLC has really, it doesn't happen overnight. And so the things that you implement together and improve and all the little steps that you take to build that collaboration and communication, like I said, it's not about any one program. It's about all of us doing it together. But you can see just from my data here, as the years have gone on and as our PLC has gotten stronger and as we have put all these things into Canvas, all of our stuff has improved. So this is our technical skills assessment, which I will say, by the way, for our program, we get 100% pass rate, but for us, it is trying to improve that passing score every year. So you can see in 2017, our pass rate was 73%. I'm sorry. Well, that's district. Is this district or is this me?
District.
And is this the technical skills? Okay, pass rate 93%. I'm like, oh, that looks weird. So the average score went from 68% to 73% to 78%. So you see these jumps every year where our average score has gone up every single year. And same with our pass rate. And so it's exciting to see that the more that we work together, the better we all get. And I always even tell my students, like the other culinary programs, they're not our competition. And we're here to work together. And even when in competition season, when we work together, all of our data improves.
Christy, there is a question. It is, what does your technical skills assessment look like in your culinary courses?
Okay, so the technical skills assessment is a high stakes test for the state of Arizona. I cannot be proctored by me. They can't actually do it in my lab because of all the content around them to help them with the test. The technical skills assessment is based off of our state blueprint, and a blueprint is very specific to each course. For culinary arts, for example, 50% of the test is going to be based off of safety and sanitation. It's based off of the standards. So wherever the standard, more heavy hitting standards, you're going to have more questions based off of that. So for example, at the smallest part of our blueprint, where they have the fewest amount of questions, would be like culinary math and converting from standard to metric, or being able to figure out recipe conversions, right? And so you know where to spend a lot more of your time, especially in that second year, so that your blueprint or the thing you focus on the most transfers to those high stake tests.
Excellent. So let's look at the other piece of data. And this is, this one is just for COFA.
Yes, and this is the ServSafe one. Okay. And so again, average scores, and you're learning, I came into this having my ServSafe, but that doesn't necessarily mean I knew how to teach it to someone else. And so, like I said, that collaboration, that PLC, that bringing that all together absolutely helps that. So when you get that average passing score of 23% and an average score of 63%, not so great, but 2 years later, the average score is 72%, and I have 80% of my kids passing. That's fantastic. Last year, it did get canceled because it was a definitely no-fly zone in second semester. But next week, we're getting ready to take our ServSafe again, and I think our passing score is even going to be even higher. So it really does pull it all together.
All right, and let me see. Any questions on ServSafe or, from Jake? Do your certifications require a certain number of hours for hands-on learning with a certified instructor supervising? If so, how have you been able to get your students those hands-on hours, or how have those requests been adjusted due to COVID?
So not for the certifications, no, but for dual credit, yes. And so my culinary 2 students, or my vocational students, they still qualify for dual credit because the college is counting the hours that they did last year plus the remaining hours that we're going to continue to do this year. However, my culinary 1 students who do qualify for culinary basics, they are not qualifying this year because they will not have enough hours. So that is the only thing that that we're having issues with as far as being able to get hours in.
Any other questions on this next screen? This is just our contact information. Here are our emails. We are happy to take questions if you come up with them later. That really concludes the majority of our presentation, but we still have about 8 minutes. So if you have any questions or you want to stay on and ask a question, we'll be happy to stay on. Christy and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us. It's been wonderful. So unless you have, I'll keep an eye on the chat to see if any other questions come on. We appreciate you guys and your kindness in the chat to us. That's been very nice. So just let us know if you need anything else, and we'd be happy to get back to you if you send an email or you can put something in the chat. Christy and I will be on here for a little while.